to begin the interview portion then, Mez, how do you define success, and how has that definition changed over time?
Oh man, I mean, for me, how do you define success? I think the only way you can define that is if you're if yourself as an individual, or yourself as if we're taking it from a band's perspective, is, are you happy? Are you proud of what you're doing? Do you believe in what you're doing? You know, a lot of people define success with accolades, and that's great, because accolades are obviously, you know, important. But for me, it's not about that. It's beautiful when that does happen, and we've been lucky enough to be, you know, especially in terms of radio play on Six Music and stuff, you know, with a lot of, I think we've had 8 singles in a row playlisted now. But you know, accolades for me is if we're proud of something, and you know, it's an accolade getting this album out Northeast Coastal Town. That's an accolade in itself, because the industry, like you know, mate, is so hard at the moment. There's, you know, financially everything is broken. There's not enough money for artists. There's not enough money for creatives. There's not enough money for the journalists, for anything. There are no record deals. So just getting it out tomorrow is what we should be really proud of. That's the accolade there, man. It's hard work and pride and you know, and a sense of euphoria. So for me, that's how I would define success. I would never really quantify it with money or anything like that. For me, it's about happiness.
Yeah. So would you say then, as a, you know, I guess it's a straightforward question, but it's a bit I don't know, a bit straight on, but would you say you're a happy person, like now at this point in your life?
I would say that there are a lot of things I'm happy with in my life. I love my little boy. Being a single father has really taught me a lot. So yeah, I love him, and I love my partner, who I've been lucky enough to be with now for 4 years. I love the band. They're my best friends. You know, we simply are just 4 good friends. So yeah, I'm happy. There are a lot of things in the world that make me unhappy. We can just see the situation in the country right now, and the situation across the world as well, whether that be politics or climate. But in terms of my own personal individualism, yeah, I would say that I'm happy, and I'm very proud to be getting this record out tomorrow.
Absolutely, man. I mean, obviously we'll talk a little bit about some of the songs on the record in a minute, because there's some I'm particularly interested in, but I do want to ask you one more question around legacy and the idea of legacy. Now, obviously, you know, this album is very centered around Hull and you know, kind of paying tribute to Hull, but I wanted to ask you personally, do you concern yourself with the idea of legacy, and what does it mean to you if you do?
I think the idea of legacy for me is to be defined with have you stood up for yourself? Have you been outspoken when you should have been outspoken? Have you believed in what you believe in? You know, so for me, I always feel like whether it's hindered us in the long run, or it's benefited in the long run, as long as we're doing what we believe in, then that's how you create your legacy, because then you're being true to yourself and you're being true to your beliefs. So you know, I think that's how I would define that, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very keen to ask you as well about your attitude to perception in the music industry, because you've always been very open and honest, and you have always been very open and honest in my experience on social media about the realities of being in a band. However, if you look at life's social media presence, so the thousands of streams and the fact you've been and played South by Southwest, the fact you've toured all over Europe, there's a perception there. And for anybody that is maybe looking at life and goes, or looks at you and goes, oh, I'm never going to be Mez, I'm never going to have those opportunities to tour around the world and to have these, you know, all the trappings of, you know, lots of streams, radio play and things like that. What would be your message to someone that is looking at that, looking at you guys and how many streams you've got, and how you know, and how popular you are in terms of radio plays, and he's looking at that and going, oh, I can't do that, I'm never going to be there, and that sort of perception that is very central to the music industry, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think that's the key thing is perception. You know, people could probably take a look at life, like you say, Instagram and our radio achievements, and the fact that we've toured America, the fact that we've toured across Europe, the fact that we've flown in and out of massive festivals and played at big events like Glastonbury and on all sorts, you know. But the fact is that, and this is the hard fact that people sometimes don't realise, is it's hard work that gets you to that place, because simply the music industry hasn't been kind to bands like us. You know, we're not necessarily the most fashionable. We're not also London-based. We're also not the youngest anymore. You know, there's a lot of things that can go against you, and you've got to fight against that, because the music industry at the moment is really sort of, you know, a lot of labels at the moment are signing for people just through TikTok or that kind of thing, and it's ridiculous, because it is not really about art and being creative. So I think, for me, really, I would say to those people, you know, you've got to believe in yourself. And I said this when I was working at the Warren, and Sue would have done as well. It's about empowering other people to understand that, you know, it can be done. You just need to believe in yourself. You've got to, obviously you can't just put anything out there. You've got to really, like in any discipline in life or in any career, you've almost got to study it. You've got to, if you're going to do it with no backing from anyone else, and you're going to take hold of it and ownership of it, you've got to put your all in it. You've got to research. You've got to really believe in it. You've got to make sure that the final package that you put out, whether that be a single or an album, is something that all of you as a group or as an individual are happy with. So it's all about self-belief, control, and as in terms of like discipline and control over your career, and a sense of pride, and then you just got to go for it sometimes. And you know, that's what I would say to anyone starting out. It's never going to be an overnight thing, and sadly I don't think that even exists really, unless you're truly lucky. So you've just got to believe in it. And I think, you know, we've always tried to instill that, especially with bands from around our area, from the talent development work that myself and Stu did. But even if you look at the album celebration that we're putting on in Hull in September, you know, 3 of the bands who are supporting us are all from Wilberforce College, and we've partnered with the college, and we've, you know, in order to help sort of raise profile and also give them a chance to play with the bands that they are inspired by, which is great for us, because it's like, you know, they're at college saying that they're really inspired by a local band such as ourselves, and we're also inspired by the fact that they're exciting and creative, and we want to, you know, collaborate on. And you know, that's what it's about. You've just got to sort of drop your guard and be proactive and make sure that you believe in yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that moves on nicely to my next question. I mean, I do keep coming up with them because, you know, obviously it's very interesting talking to you about the music industry. We will discuss the album, I do promise you that. But in terms of your tips and advice then, because I think the thing about life is you champion DIY culture. You have the Facebook groups, the you know, all that stuff, the dedicated fan base, and you don't have, and this is the reality of it, you don't have loads of money pumping into the band. There's there's not loads of money around for the band and things like that. And for bands like Ket Cow and Candid Faces that you're championing, you know, they're in the same boat. So what would be your key tips for any bands that, you know, think, oh, I'm from this area, there's no music industry, there's no infrastructure for it, you know, you need money to get PR, you need money to do this and that and whatever. What would be your key tips to young people and bands in that position who are really thinking, you know, there's no way for me to take this music out of my hometown because there's just no infrastructure?
I think the main thing is you've got to have a long-term plan. It never happens, you know, yeah, you're right, we don't have money pumped in. All the money that we've got has been self-made, so it comes through the gigs, it comes through the merchandise, it comes from the radio plays, but like, that doesn't just happen. That's like a 15-year plan, you know, or a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan. You can't just jump from one thing to then, you know, having a great slot at Glastonbury or doing an American tour. That's not just going to happen in a month. So you have to have that determination and you have to have that commitment. You know, like I said, it's about discipline and the long-term goal, and setting what I always used to do from early days to I still do it now is you're setting goals constantly, and you work into a timeline. It sounds crazy that like that's how it could happen, but you really are plotting dates, and that's how you move on, and that's how you jump ladders if you have no money, and that's how you've got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. It's that graft and determination, which we'll come back to at the end. Moving on to the record now, because there's obviously, it's coming out tomorrow. I'm particularly fascinated by a couple of tracks on there. One is Duck Egg Blue, because it's an example for me how the sound has changed. There's a lot more electronic elements, and you are arguably, and I'm going to say arguably because I'm aware it's my opinion and perception, a little bit more introspective. So if you could take me through Duck Egg Blue first, and what went into that track, because it's very emotional. You can hear there's a lot of thought and a lot of thought gone into that track, and it's much more stripped down than what I have, and I guess a lot of people have come to know from life.
Yeah, definitely. Just Duck Egg Blue is a classic example of what we wanted to achieve with this album. Duck Egg Blue, Friends Without Names, those kind of songs where we didn't really want to fit the mold of being genre specific. Like, a lot of our albums in the past, the last two, could definitely be all filed in post-punk and with the bands and our peers that we play with, such as, like Idols and Fontaines DC and all of the bands that, we see on tour. We really wanted to show that on this album what we were about and who we were, and that we were musicians in our own right, and we didn't have to be boxed off by genres. And so really, Duck Egg Blue, we recorded the full album over 5 days in the chapel just below the River Humber in Lincolnshire. And literally what you're hearing on Duck Egg Blue is it's basically a realist love song. It's a beautiful piece of lyricism by my brother Mick. He wrote the lyrics on that one. Obviously we share lyric duties, but he wrote the majority of lyrics on that. I think I only contributed to the end refrains of I hold you and I love you and stuff like that. It's a realist love song, and really when we were recording it, the band, Stu, Mick and Lydia, performed in a round in the place called the Chapel, which was literally a chapel, and then I was isolated behind them in a different booth. So what you can hear there is the band literally playing live, experimenting with different sounds, like you say. Stu was playing lots of different instruments, and at one point it was just him and Mick on an acoustic, and then Lydia on a bass. And we recorded it at 2 in the morning, and I remember singing it. Do you know what? I feel a bit frail on this. I feel like we've been at it all day, and this was one of the last songs that we recorded that day. I mean, it was a 2 o'clock in the morning thingy, but I was like, to the producer Luke Smith, who was a brilliant man and brilliant producer, and I was like, this sounds perfect for it. It's cracked. My vocal is cracked. I'm not trying to hide anything here. This is exactly what the song needs. And it was us just being really honest with ourselves, which we're trying to do with this record, is just be real upfront and honest, and not censor anything, and not maybe go with the trend or copy any other genres. Not saying that we ever did that, but I'm saying like we didn't want to feel pigeonholed on this record, so we just literally, it's just us four playing what we wanted to play, and I guess Duck Egg Blue is a prime example of that, mate.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because you've ended the record with a track called All You Are, which again is that introspective thing, and I would say that's even more emotionally vibrant, than Duck Egg Blue in terms of your your vocals are quite strained on that in some parts. It does seem like a very somber, reflective way to end the record, and I wanted to ask you, why did you choose to end the record with All You Are, and what does that track mean to you? Because again, I really felt the voice and the sort of the strain in your vocal listening to that, and it was quite a beautiful song to end the record on.
Yeah, I think again we always had planned to finish the record with that song. The end resolve, the end lyric is all you are is everything, and whether that is my feelings towards my partner, or Lydia's feeling towards her partner, or Stu's feeling towards his partner, or my brother's feeling towards his partner. Sorry, I mean you get what I'm saying here, but like
Yeah.
it's a universal refrain. All you are is everything. It doesn't even have to. It doesn't even have to be about a person. It could be about anything. But so we really wanted to end on that sentiment of universal sort of a universal statement saying all you are is everything. Yet it still feels intimate, which is what the whole record is about. It's our love letter to the city of Hull, and the community and the people who we are close to. So really, we felt like, you know, this was us being as true as we could be and as authentic as we could be to what we planned to do with the album and its blueprint.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's a great record. I'm very excited. I'm so excited for you guys, man. As a fan of the band, I've got 4 or 5 more questions now, and one of them is I'd like you to reflect a little bit and go back to A Picture of Good Health. Now, obviously, times have changed, things have changed. It's been a while, but obviously that record did a lot for you, and you know you found that quite. I remember reading interviews where you found that very challenging as well. So, how do you look back now that this record is ready to go, putting it out tomorrow, new album? How do you look back on A Picture of Good Health and what that record did for you and what it meant to you?
I think, you know, that record really gave us the platform to be able to go on and do what we have done with this record. You know, whilst there were elements of putting that record out that were intense, and we were away from home for 4 or 5 months at a time, and that's just one of the facts about the industry. You know, it can be, don't be afraid to say no if something feels like you're taking on too much. I think that's what we've learned going forward as well, is like really take ownership, and you don't have to flog yourself all the time. I'm not saying that we did, because we really will look back at that intensive touring and that constant tour as an amazing experience and an amazing live experience, but sometimes you do have to put your mental health first, and I think that's what I've learned from that record. But 100% that record established who we were as a band. It gave us that platform. It really galvanized us as an artist and let us crack on and do and give us, I think really at the end of the day, the best answer for that is A Picture of Good Health gave us the freedom to do Northeast Coastal Town, and that's probably the best way I can sum that up, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like you to reflect as well on how you've changed. Now, it's a similar-ish question, but if you could take me back to the Mez that was in the Neat, you know, way back when, and sort of take me through how you would say, because I know you can't speak for Stu and Lydia and the other members and Mick, but how would you say you have changed and developed? What have you learned about yourself? Because you know, the vocal, I remember listening to the Neat stuff, you know, your vocal is very distinct. It's always been there, but that's a musical thing. How would you say you have changed? What have you learned about yourself from the days in the Neat and what you were then and who you were then to who you are now?
Well, I mean, first of all, the days in the Neat were very exciting for me. I was 21. I was, well, you know, we were very young. Loz, who was originally in Life, and Rich, who was originally in Life, were in the Neat. And then my brother joined the Neat as well. So, you know, there are elements of Life rooted in the Neat. You know, it was a great experience for me. We imploded. We only did 3 singles. A couple of them did really well. But, you know, it was a classic case of being 21, being very hedonistic, being, you know, very focused on London and being there every weekend and hanging out with the people that you were told to hang out. There was a lot of, you know, what you can expect with being young at that age. There was a lot of excess drinking and a lot of probably, drug taking, not in terms of massive amounts, but, you know, we were young. I think I served my apprenticeship there, really. I always say the Neat was my apprenticeship. It was like me learning how to, because we were still unsigned and we still did everything ourselves, but I was just winging it, really. But it really taught me how to map out a project and blueprint it, and that's what I learned from the Neat going into Life. And you know, that's where it was literally, I've said it a few times, but it was like I was serving, I consider it as my apprenticeship to moving into a band that has become a professional artist, and with a group of people who I would trust my life with, you know? Yeah, absolutely. No, it's beautiful to hear you reflect on that, because again, I know it's been many years, but
I did enjoy the Neat as well. Before we move on to the plugging questions that I'm going to ask you to do, I would like to ask you about your motivations. Now, you mentioned your son, of course, and I know that you've spoken about that before. But what is it that inspires you day to day, that gets you up, that keeps you going on those difficult days? Because you have been open about, you have had some rough days in the past, and you have opened up about your mental health in previous interviews. What is it that drives you outside of music? Is it places that you go, any particular people, a favourite spot? What is it that motivates you day to day to keep going?
I think you've got to have a healthy balance, and I think, I have opened up about that in previous years. I definitely, before A Picture of Good Health came out, I was not in a good place, probably hence the album title. But I struggled quite a lot with trust and relationship. But I think finding my partner Farah and bringing my son up as a single parent really taught me different things. And for me you've got to have a good life balance. So I've really enjoyed going hiking and exploring different mountains of the UK. I've done a lot. I try and get out, and I try and take myself away from the band sometimes. I never will ever let go. I have that, Stu will say this all the time, a lot of I'm a driving force in a way. Sometimes it's almost too controlling,
yeah.
But that's because I've always said to myself, I truly believe that this group of people can get out the best album and be something very proud of, and that would really create a legacy for this band. And that's my motivation day to day as well. I think we've probably done it with this record, and I'm not saying that that's going to then now demotivate me, but I've really believed in something, and seeing it through, I've had to see it through, because when I believe something, it goes back to what I would say to those young bands: if you believe in it, you've got to go for it. I can't not. If that's what I'm giving as advice, I have to also stick by my principles as well, and therefore that's the reason why we're in this situation, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it's interesting that you say that, and I wanted to ask you directly. It's a little bit similar to some of the questions, but I think what's interesting with you is that you worked in the Warren for years. You left the Warren to do Life, and you had the label and everything. You've got the studio, and I know it's really hard for you guys every day to keep it going. So, if I was to ask you directly, straight up, why do you keep doing it? What would be your answer?
I think it's because I've still not. It's not concluded for me.
Yeah.
From very young, I've always wanted to be proud of something, and I can be proud of everything that I've done. But for me, it's still not concluded. And I guess I know that sounds like a on the fence kind of answer, but it doesn't feel like there's an end yet. I know when something's ended, and this hasn't ended, so I will keep going until I believe it comes to its natural conclusion.
Nice. It's a good answer, man. And I hope you understand why I asked that question. It's just because, again, it's a great example for people to, because you left the security of other jobs. You've set up your own studio. You've grafted. You're doing other. You're trying to keep it going. And I just think it's really beautiful that you're still here. You're still doing it, and you can say, because not everybody could say they're proud of everything they've done. Certainly musically. So it's a cool thing to be able to say that you can say you're proud of what you've done musically. And I guess that musical legacy, if that makes sense.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, a couple more questions in the promo side of things. Life has always had it's always worn its heart on its sleeve with regard to its relationship to the fans, the lifers, as you affectionately call them. And I guess what would be your message now that we're on the eve of the record, and I guess going forward the next few weeks, months, even years, what would be your long-term message to the lifers and the people that have supported Life from the very beginnings up until now?
What, as in a message to those who have always been there?
Yeah.
I think, from the bottom of our hearts, we say this in a lot of our statements, but without people who have truly believed in us, we wouldn't be here. fans are our everything, you know. They're the ones who buy our tickets. They're the ones who buy our merch. We don't have a record label that pumps money into us. We don't have advertisements or anything like that. So, you know, the fans mean everything. It's classic fan to fan relationship, and I think, you know, we don't believe in barriers. You know, we're the same. You know, we're getting from the music just as much as they're getting from the music. It's a linear experience. We're together in this. So I guess, you know, we just thank whoever believed in us and who has ever put trust in us and supported us. Then, you know, that's the reason why we make the music.